Hey everyone, welcome to Experience This. We're in season number 3, and this is show 14, a really special show today. I'm Bruce Rosard, one of the co-founders of Arrival. I'll introduce my co-hosts who will give their quick perspective of the Peak fundraise and double acquisition last week. Really interesting Series D round of 70 million, and they immediately spent some chunk of it by acquiring 2 companies. So we're here with Josiah Filler, who's been with the company forever, and he can tell us the inside scoop. But first, Lori, go ahead and introduce yourself and your perspective.
Hey everyone, Lori Timoney with Go City. Glad to be here today and looking forward to chatting with you, Josiah. Exciting news from your front.
Thank you.
I'm interested to see or to chat a little bit about kind of what you are after other than the audience. Obviously, the audience was more than likely number one, but were there additional reasons why you decided to choose Connect&Go and Acme? And what does it mean? And what does it mean for the industry? All of these, everything that's going on right now between the Klook IPO filing, Peak raising, there's excitement in the air in the experiences space. So looking forward to talking more about that. Tristan?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll stick with your questions there, Laurie. So I'm Christian with Magpie. Love to hear sort of your response to all those questions, Josiah. If you can give us a quick intro as well, for those that don't know you. I'm sure you know most people, but just a quick intro. You've been at Peak forever and your role and all that stuff. And then let's jump into Laurie's questions.
Yeah, happy to be here, guys. Thanks for having me. Super fun. Josiah Filler, Chief Revenue Officer here at Peak, part of the founding team. So coming up on, I think, 14 years in May. So been a minute. I've worn numerous hats, currently overseeing the revenue organization. So all things clients and prospect facing. And we're very excited. I will say that this has been a crazy process. I've had, I guess, the fortunate luck of either leading or supporting heavily every fundraiser we've done to date. And, I think in this macroeconomic climate, raising capital is not easy. So I think first and foremost, very excited to be able to bring on board some great investors and 2 amazing companies. I think for us, we feel like it's a testament to market support for our business and our thesis in an environment where it's tough to raise capital. Right? I mean, you're seeing a lot of discussion around, AI, and obviously we are doing a lot with AI. But other than that, been a tough climate for a lot of software. And so I think we are excited about, bringing on new capital and feel like it's a chance for us to do a number of things. I'll try. I told Christian I would promise my best to not do the press release, so I'll give you the honest take. I think first and foremost, we felt for a long time like we wanted to have broader reach in this market, and obviously, we've kind of focused heavily on specifically tours, activities, and rentals for a very long time. But as we've looked forward into this market, we've felt like the power of scale has just been a really important theme. And obviously, you've seen that with some acquisitions, 7-8 years ago, then some consolidations more recently. But we feel like if you look at the world ahead, the power of scale will matter in so many different ways. Whether that's having more scale for your data lakes to run, natural language models on top of, LLMs to have better AI tools, whether that's having scale benefit for having the best partnerships, attracting the best people. But for us, it was just really important to have a skill-driven play that we could go out and make sure that our offering, our value was being shared with as many people as possible. On the actual technology side, which I think is what matters most to our prospects, our clients, our partners, we just felt like the mission that we had been setting out to create and delivering day in, day out had a chance to just have broader reach. And so, we talk a lot about in the business, what should be in terms of Peak Pro, a core offering, what should be an integration, what should be somewhere in between. And I think as we started looking at the market that was out there, so many more of the things that our partners, which we call our clients, our partners were asking for, were actually things that largely could be done by their partners. And so we spent quite a bit of time looking at the landscape, who's out there, who does what. And as part of that process, came across the Acme and the Connect&Go teams, and just felt like, wow, if you look at the way that they position themselves in the market, right? So Acme serves largely, cultural institutions, nonprofits, museums, science centers. I mean, this is a team that has been lean and mean, and yet has some of the most impressive logos in the world, frankly, right? They've got the MoMA, they've got Seattle Aquarium, they've got the International Spy Museum. And so to have relationships where, resoundingly these clients are raving about the experience of working with Acme felt to us like a cultural alignment of value offering And then also just, the people have been fantastic on both sides. And then on the flip side with Connect&Go, right, have made their way into some of the really, powerful theme park, water park brands that are out there, powering Drayton Manor, powering the Looping Group, a number of really large, water parks and theme parks in the US. And so again, I have this slide that I made at one point that showed the verticals we all operate in, right? And it was tremendously complementary, right? We didn't want to go out there and have to worry about tremendous, potential infighting or conflicting rules. Rather find areas where we could take the value in the platform and bring it to market. And then I think as we double clicked into it, the themes kept resonating. Great teams, great platforms, great solutions, and ultimately, we settled with the best of on-site meets the best of online, and that really is true. Like I went to IAPA last week and spent the week walking around, listening and watching the Connect&Go team sell and talk to their current clients, and the number of times that the conversation felt exactly the same way the conversation felt at arrival to me was so cool, because it felt like, okay, cool, this is an alignment that we were hoping for, and now rings true. So obviously we are heads down. This has been a process to figure out how to best bring these teams together, bring these platforms together. And I'm not going to pretend that we have a perfect plan from day one, but I think we have a lot of alignment on direction ahead. And we're going to spend the next 6, 12, 18 months, hopefully making sure that this is something that the market, most importantly our clients and our prospects, feel adds value for them.
I want to throw a question out to all three of you, because when I saw this, my immediate thought was interesting. Because we've been talking about consolidation for a long time now, right? And Josiah Peek plays in a different pool, if you will, than where Acme and Connect&Go play. So, if we all bet who's going to consolidate a couple of weeks ago and Peek is doing the consolidating, you have your competitive set, right? That we all know about that are going after the tours and activities and experiences business, more SME, getting up to a little bit of decent sized companies, but not enterprise, not attractions, not museums, etc. So when you announced that you're acquiring Acme Ticketing, which, I mean, it's a very vanilla name. I have no idea what their software is, but like you said, they have some fantastic logos, so they must be really good at what they do on the ticketing side. And that's why I love that phrase, on site. That's probably where they've helped their customers quite a bit. And Connect&Go, it's just you're aggregating by vertical integration in a different way. And I think that's really interesting. And what do you guys think about that? And, would you have guessed a week or two ago that consolidation means this kind of consolidation, or, company A buying company B and they're all the same players?
Yeah, I think what's interesting is if I look at Connect&Go, they're out of Montreal, aren't they, Josiah?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. So when I was looking at their portfolio, it's theme parks, of course, but it's very different. Like they're not the big brands that you see in the US necessarily. So interesting to see, in terms of growing your audience, that you're coming at it from a different place, because obviously just a different geo, you have different partners. And so you're not just bringing kind of the big brands from the US to the table, but obviously the ability to grow that space, having, the all of the information they now have. But how did you land on that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think, half the battle is finding the right platform and team. And so I think for us, we wanted, again, to find businesses that were complementary. And, the geographic footprint actually for us was very attractive. I think they've made a great name for themselves in the Canadian market and parts of Europe, especially France with the Looping Group. It's one of the largest corporate entities owning theme parks and water parks and all kinds of attractions in Europe. And so for us, when we saw that, we said, okay, this is an opportunity for us to, again, further our reach, right? Not have, again, we have tremendous scale in North America, and obviously growing scale, in Latin America and in Europe, but we felt like it was complementary. And so when you see a business that says, oh, they're already in there, and then you start trading notes on the needs of the clients, on the needs of the attractions, and then looking at where there potentially is both, redundancy, but more importantly, opportunity. We just feel like time and time again, there was opportunity. So, I think, Bruce, you made a comment about Acme. Well, turns out Acme, one of their most impressive features is their memberships module. They have an amazing memberships module, thinking about membership, purchasing, entitlements, how to navigate that. Well, turns out on the Peek side, for the last, call it 3 years, membership has been advanced memberships. We have a module, advanced memberships, been one of the most common requests. And so for us, we get excited about thinking about where there can be cross-pollination and potentially taking folks who have spent, thousands of hours thinking about these modules and then potentially helping you take those and cross-pollinate them across platforms. The plan is to keep the brands distinct, the platforms distinct. We think that they've done a great job actually building their reputations, their client bases, their loyalty. Resoundingly, the clients love the people, the platform. So it's really just, okay, where do we go from here? And then I think on the flip side, it was, walking around our IAPA felt very much like Arrival last year, where, we try to lead with this AI conversation. And, for those who attended, we had a really big AI bubble, that people had to go through and put VR on. And talking to the attractions at IAPA, it was clear that so many folks were struggling to figure out where they should make their bets and who they should invest in and what they should do. And I mean, we spent a fair amount of time talking to the technology leaders about how we at Peek think about it. And then just starting the dialogue now about where we can support them in the next phase, because it's not just a bunch of features. It's actually an entirely, kind of technology-driven strategy you have to be embracing to make sure that you're relevant. And I think the Arrival community and the tours activities and rentals businesses that we typically come from, I think you have seen a little bit more innovation starting now. But the themes we heard time and time again from both the client bases of Acme and Connect&Go was that it's been fairly stagnant, and that's why they picked working with the technology partners they have, because they felt like they were the ones who were innovating the fastest. And so if we can help turbocharge that, we're going to do it.
Yeah, interesting with the names, because I remember talking to Acme, I don't know, 12 years ago when we were talking to Peek as well, probably soon after you guys started. And I haven't heard that much about them since, but I remember 12 years ago thinking they had one of the best systems. It also makes me think about names, thinking about Peek Pro, Peek Plus, Peekosystem, Peek all of this, and what Bruce just said about the name Acme. So maybe it should be like Peek Enterprise and get rid of the Acme thing, but not for me to decide. But is this it? Like Laurie just said, the first thing I thought was kind of the same thing. Is just this a way for Peek to really jump into the enterprise? Because I know you've been trying to get to the enterprise. I think it's fairly widely spread known that Ventrata's been kind of really quickly moving in that space and gobbling up all these accounts. Is this just a way to jumpstart you into that space?
I mean, I think we've actually had quite a bit of growth into enterprise already, right? I mean, we're powering on Peek Pro properly, powering clients like Bryant Park or the Museum of Ice Cream. So I think we have seen success. It's actually the fastest growing area of our business is enterprise. But to your point, Christian, a chance for us to accelerate that further, by all means. And I think what's been fun is I've spent quite a bit of time the last 3 to 6 months during diligence, during planning, having me, Aaron Powers, our VP of Sales, Michael Calder, the head of sales for Acme, Dominic, the CEO, and now on my team on go-to-market for Connect&Go, and trading notes about our sales motions, our processes, what they need from technology. And it's actually been incredibly complimentary again, right? I'll say that word probably 1,000 times, just because it's been fun to then talk shop and go, hey, we do that. Oh, that would work here. Oh yeah, well, they need this thing, and we did the same thing there. And so I think it will accelerate our move into enterprise that we've already been working on for the latter part of the last kind of 5 years. And most importantly, if you look a step back, I'm finding myself in conversations, coming out of Arrival in the last kind of 4 to 6 weeks, talking with the technology leaders at a level that just hasn't existed, I think, in our industry for a very long time. And when I say I mean the tours and activities, right? I mean, I'm in one conversation with a CIO of a very innovative enterprise company, and I had to pull in our CTO co-founder Oscar, which I think you guys all know, to go, because we were talking about the depth of the data lakes and how they would speak with this and the MCP over here. And it was a I'm not a technology guy, I'm not a top product leader, but what I could walk away from the conversation thinking is, wow, our industry is finally getting there. And it's being pulled there by a very small subset of enterprise leaders, right, and technologists who want to do the best thing for this space. And so I do think, to answer your question directly, Christian, by accelerating the move into enterprise, we believe strongly that the benefit there trickles down to the rest of the base. And so if we can be, the most cutting edge, the most innovative, and obviously the best value, then it will benefit everybody, and hopefully bring the entire market with us, because it is the most demanding segment by far. But it'll raise our, what does it say? Rising tide raises all boats. So that's the whole.
That is what they say. And I don't know if you want to go there, but you're welcome to. If not, Christian will, because you're small in enterprise. You say we're getting there, but that's not what Peek is known for. That's not how Peek has grown. Who are the competitors in enterprise? Because when you mentioned these guys aren't, we've never seen Acme at an arrival event, for example. There's a lot of tech companies that do go to IAPA. I look at them and I'm like, who are these companies? Most of them are legacy tech who are focused on that on-site ticketing.
Yeah.
And that's why they're not at arrival, which is focused on online reservations and ticketing, et cetera.
Yeah.
Christian mentioned Ventrata. We all know how fast they've been growing over the last few years. Who do you look at now as the competitive set?
Yeah,
or your next acquisition, should I say?
I mean, I'm sure Douglas could do a whole report on this thing, right? But as we dug into it, I mean, certainly there is a layer of kind of legacy incumbents like your Accessos, your Gateways of the world, right? Your Blackbauds in the cultural arts, there's Tessitura. So I think you'll see a different set of players there, and they all have their strengths and their gaps. And then I think you are seeing then, similar to our core tours activities industry, a new set of entrants who are trying to make their mark, right? So you have the Ventratos of the world. Obviously we know Ali and team. I think Roller has made an interesting set of moves from the FEC segment and trying to kind of come over. We're starting to see some of Rocket Res pivot a bit more into the water parks world, and then you have some players that I'm hearing for the first time. Like your core cashless or your Convius, or obviously they have Viva Ticket in Europe. So I think there is an interesting ecosystem. What I think stood out to me in talking to dozens of prospects and clients last week at IAPA was just, again, nobody is really winning the world. There's no single platform that is the incumbent that everybody's happy with. It seemed like more often than not, people were saying, thank you. Hey, we would love to see this and this innovation, right? Can you help us accelerate this part of the roadmap for these teams? And so it felt like to me very validating for our thesis, which was, there hasn't been as much innovation in those segments as there has been in tours, activities, and rentals the last 5 to 10 years. And so if we can help find ways to again, go faster there on that front and add more value, there's an opportunity to steal some clients and have some wins and make everybody happy. And it's very, very small communities. And so I think it was also very reassuring to walk away hearing the positive feedback saying, okay, great. These brands are solid. People are very happy. And they just want more. They want more help. They want some more support, which is the exact same way I felt walking out of Arrival this year.
I actually like the fact that you're you're not necessarily, or you're not necessarily looking at some of those brands, those theme parks in the U.S., but you're taking on a whole geo that maybe other people they're not even thinking about necessarily. Some of them are, some of them aren't, but I kind of like the idea that Connect&Go brings to you, kind of the opportunity to even go beyond the US, et cetera, and, to an even greater degree. But one thing that I have been thinking about, going back to, you just mentioned cashless. So I wonder, when do you think that you'll be introducing cashless to, some of these museums and tour operators? How is that gonna, when and how will that come into the picture?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and obviously I'll be careful not committing my product team on things that aren't my call. But what we're doing right now, we've spent the last 3 to 6 months doing a due diligence on is mapping out for each platform really what are their strongest suits, right? Obviously we know Peek like the back of our hand. What is Acme best at? What is Connect&Go best at? Building out a matrix of those offerings, then figuring out technology-wise what could be brought to bear across different platforms and given to other segments. And then prioritizing it, right? And you always prioritize based on the pull from the market. Where is the demand? I think actually, cashless, I'm not sure. The things that have stood out to me immediately, for example, are some of the RFID technology for all things water parks and water related. I mean, we have hundreds, if not thousands, of operators on our platform that operate in boat rentals, stand-up paddleboards, kayaks, in and around the water. And so to have the ability to potentially bring to them things that could help with their virtual wallets and their cashless payments. Watching and seeing the way that Connect&Go handles this for the water park segment is truly best in class, and that's not hyperbole. It's really it's fun to watch. And so if I can take some of that technology and give it to then the core water segments, especially because a lot of these segments, in our tours and activities world, haven't had the luxury of even thinking about that, right? They're so focused on the operational complexity of running their business that thinking about just going online was the first big step. And then, okay, let's get waivers, thinking about insurance. If I can now come to them and say, hey, let me help you with, AI pricing and really powerful cashless payments and, digital lockers, I do suspect that will really blow people's minds and be a really powerful way to differentiate. And then similarly on our side, the things that we can give to them. I think we have focused relentlessly on, I think we've all had in this industry for a long time had to focus relentlessly on digital conversion, right? A/B testing, optimization of the flows and the booking. And that's an area where, because the other businesses have focused a bit more heavily on the on-site experience and not the, they call it e-com, right? Focusing on e-com optimization. If we can help them with e-com optimization and therefore improve the way that they attract customers with their funnel and their purchase flows, it's a win-win-win. So that's really the goal. Getting smart. We're not going to pretend that we have all the answers. Come at it with humility. Learn. I learned a ton last week at IAPA, and hopefully then use that same kind of relentless approach. Because even in the core Peek world, right, we service 100+ verticals, and so we have to think about how we prioritize based on those. Now it's just a little larger TAM to go after and think about it the same way.
It's easy to simplify, isn't it? I think we're all in our own businesses, and I thought Hop on Hop off was kind of the ultimate, because we have tours and we're kind of an attraction, so that's everything. But then you start looking vertical by vertical and you realize everyone's got their thing, and it's kind of like building for a few dozen completely different businesses in some ways, isn't it? But a couple of questions. I know a couple of raises earlier you raised on Peek.com, which I think is still the B2C piece, which has network effects. Do you see network effects on this B2B stuff? I think I saw that in one of the press releases, that there was something about a network effect there, but do you see anything, or is this just a matter of closing these enterprise accounts one by one and there is no network anymore?
No, I think there will be network effects. I think if you talk about the customer purchase journey on average, I think one conversation internally we've been very excited about is, hey, now that you have a very complementary set of offerings and somebody can go in and maybe their family books. For example, in my family, I tend to be very heavily the outdoors nature guy. My wife loves theme parks and water parks. And so we tend to, when we book our travel or experiences, we tend to compare notes. And so you'll see, maybe I'm the one who picks the really cool outdoor experience with our kids, and then she'll pick the attraction or the theme park to go to the next day. So we do think that there is now really powerful scale that can come from having this wide array of inventory that you can both facilitate, cross-sell and upsell and really filling out more of that customer journey. Figuring out how to do that best is still work in progress, but I think there will be network effects. And then I think going back to my earlier point about scale, I think we're all seeing that, the way that people discover and research and book is changing dramatically in the AI era. And so thinking about how to make sure that you as a set of platforms and a set of offerings remains top of mind and can be the ones that is the most, quickly discoverable and ultimately bookable is going to be important. And I think we are believing that the scale will be important in that sense, right? If you're trying to work with any one of the emerging models coming out and one of the emerging tools, they're going to start with likely the bigger players that are out there and work down the stack. And so we think that can be really interesting as well.
I just want to clarify, is Peek.com still a thing?
Yeah, you can go to Peek.com right now. It's still a thing. It's still growing.
Sorry for being ignorant about that.
No, it's okay.
And is that a marketplace that you're going to invest in, and now you've got access to all the clients from your two new partners?
Yeah, no, we still have the marketplace. We still invest in it. We will be adding inventory to it. We still think that there's value. I mean, I think every platform in our core industry is approached B2C a little differently, and we see that that's one branch of a broader consumer demand strategy that we think is powerful. But anything you can do to help your operators or clients grow has value to it. And so I tend to spend most of my.
We just don't hear much about it. That's why all I knew was Peek Pro and B2B.
Well, that's where you get the JetBlue Paisley relationship, right? With the B2C. Okay, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
If I'm writing one of these checks that made up the 70 million, what percentage of my return am I expecting from Peek.com versus the rest of the pieces?
I think it's safe to say that the bulk of the bet is B2B centric, AI centric, efficiency centric. So that's the primary Alliance focus. And I think that the B2C side, I won't speak on behalf of the entire brand, but we also think it's valuable in terms of attracting eyeballs and creative ways to do cross-sell. But the core focus of the business has been on the B2B side, and that's where I spend most of my time.
And regional distribution. Every time I talk to Peek, anyone from Peek, I'm like, when are you guys going to get outside the US? You're killing it in the US. There's so much opportunity around the world. And I kept hearing no, no, no. So it sounds like that's now changing. Why don't you talk about that a little?
Yeah, and I should be clear that we do have, I mean, we have hundreds of partners. We call them partners today in Latin America, or a very sizable footprint in Mexico. We have a sizable footprint in the Caribbean, Costa Rica, Canada, a small footprint, but growing in Europe. So we already are international. I think that, for anybody who knows us or our product team, we tend to be very deliberate about where we go. We want to make sure that if we do go into a market, we can have a really great, user experience and back-end B2B experience. And so I think we've seen some companies come out and try to grow too fast internationally and have that get watered down their overall offering, right? Or they spend their entire time having to battle within the localization needs of each market, and actually can come at a debit to their core functionality innovation. And so for us, we always want to make sure that we're being deliberate and focused. I think, Laura, you hit on this with Connect&Go. Certainly having one of our portfolio brands now that we're working with, and one of our overall companies that we are supporting have a strong footprint today will help accelerate that learning curve. And I've already learned more in the last 2 months about how to operate a business, in Canada, in Quebec, in France, in parts of Europe that I hadn't, because of just the intrinsic knowledge that they have had by having to go and service those markets. So certainly we are valuing that, and there's of course part of that in the calculus of making the investments. And Bruce, to answer your question, it will continue to be deliberate, right? When we go to market, we want to make sure that we can honestly look ourselves in the mirror and look a client in the mirror and say we're the best. And that is the case when you have the platform plus great localization. That can be watered down if you go a bit too fast. So we want to make sure that we're thoughtful about it.
Can you just repeat the number one more time? Sorry, what was the number percentage of Peek.com?
He didn't give you a number.
I'll ping our CFO and get back to you, Chris or Christian. I don't know the exact ratio.
It was single digits, probably.
Is that what he said, single digits?
No, that's what I'm saying.
There's work happening there.
Okay, let's move on.
I was going to say, I always wondered, Josiah, why Peek didn't do more or weren't paying attention to attractions in a big way.
Yeah.
That's been a question that's come up many times. And, obviously that's changing now with your recent acquisitions. Was this mainly because you just felt like we don't have the resources to go into attractions, or you wanted to focus on the tours and you just didn't have and what was the reasoning behind that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, as we think about the two segments, which are really, two parts of the same segment, I guess, same TAM, we have a laundry list of feature requests, product requests that we have assembled over 10 plus years for all the segments that Peek Pro serves at its core, right? You can always go a little deeper into one of your core segments today. And so as we've thought about ways to both bring to market the value we create faster, but also not be at a tremendous sacrifice to our existing historical core, M&A and inorganic growth felt like a great fit, right? If you can find the right brands and teams, you can instantly come in with some credibility, right? I mean, for example, one of the founders of Connect&Go sat on the board of IAPA for a number of years, right? And so the credibility of having sat on the board of IAPA and having been part of that community for 10 plus years, to me, it's a combination of credibility with the product, but more importantly, credibility with the people. It was so clear to me walking around. I keep mentioning the conference, but it was just a powerful experience. This is a small community. I mean, I went to the water park social on Wednesday night, and that could have literally been the exact same thing as an arrival event, a month prior, in terms of the profiles of people, what they care about, where they come from, where they operate. And so I think in many ways, yes, we talk about technology a lot, but this often comes down to the people you work with, the brands you operate with, and do you trust them? And do they actually care about your market and will invest in it? And I think, to answer your question directly, Laurie, we could have tried to build a bunch of stuff, and potentially, done it decently well. But to be able to say, what, we can jump in fast with a brand that's already respected, a team that knows the space, and to have a running start on both fronts, I think is impressive. And also, these are longer contract sales cycle. Typically, contracts will go 3 to 5 years, and so I think you have to be thoughtful about that. And there are some companies who have had success early on, but they often hit a wall of innovation once you go to the high end. And I think when we saw some of the brands that these platforms already had, we said, well, they already have the high end. So this will be a great way for us to go a bit faster.
I think it's super smart. Coming from where you've been, and to get into enterprise, like you're now there. And like you said, you know the people know your brands, they know your tech. I think it's really super smart. What I'm not as sure of is something you said where you're not going to combine brands. You're looking, tech is going to take a while to figure out how to integrate the tech together. The last time something like this happened was 2022 when a PE firm rolled up Checkfront, Resd, and Regiondo, 3 companies that compete right with Peek, old school Peek, if you will, right? For the SMEs. I mean, they're 3 of your biggest competitors. Now they're 1 of your biggest competitors, still operating under 3 names, even though they have the big name Expedition Software that's kind of the holding company above them. They have a new CEO, Lawrence Hester, the founder of Fair Harbor. So they're going to become a major player in that space. We don't know what they're going to do. They still have 3 brands. Their software is still not integrated. It's been now over 3 years. And it just seems like they're really missing a lot of opportunity. And Peek has a brand. You guys have been great, not good, great at your marketing and your branding, right? And maybe not as far as show that again, Christian.
OGpeek.com or Peek t-shirt here from
Promise we did not pay for the sponsorship, guys.
Oh, that's what we were going for. No, but sure, Acme has their brand, and their, like you said, their software is well known, and their people are well known, as does Connect&Go. But it's just, I don't know. I don't know what you guys all think. It seems like Mitch putting it all together under one brand. The people are the same, so the people walking around IAPA next year are still the same people that are talking to your partners. They're just different partners.
I will say, Bruce, I'm not going to listen. It's not my call as to what the future holds. And ultimately, if there's ways to maintain the brand integrity and the people, but add the might of Peek behind it in a thoughtful branding position, I'm sure that, our CEO and CMO will come up with a thoughtful way to do that. Ultimately, though, what we wanted to make sure the market heard from us was just that we do actually see tremendous value in the 2 brands because, when you do any kind of fundraise, we all know this, right? You go through extensive diligence and you talk to customers and you talk to prospects, and it was very resoundingly true that people viewed both brands with a lot of positive, perspective, and felt like they're brands that had really worked hard to earn their reputations. So, could there be some powered by Peek things that we at some point roll into the offerings? I'm sure there would be creative ways to do that, but we want to make sure that we don't undervalue and water down the impact that they've had, in both sides, right? I mean, obviously, I talked a lot about IAPA, but as far as I can gather, and I'm excited for the AZA conference next year, right? The nonprofit world is also a very different world, right? And the buyers operate differently, and there's again, tons of trust that has to be, earned over many, many years. And talking to, Bill, the CEO, and Michael, the head of sales, or Kathleen, the head of post sales, they clearly had spent, lifetimes building this out for themselves, and so the goal was to hopefully, solidify that and fortify it along the way. But I'm sure there will be creative campaigns that come out and smart stuff that will come to market with over some points soon.
Yeah, we'll watch for that.
Yeah, I think you mentioned AI earlier, Josiah. And Bruce counted how many times AI was mentioned in your press release. I think it was quite a bit, but
it was 9 times in one press release. 9 times the word AI appeared, or the word. Yeah.
But you have to. Let's face it. You can't raise right now without mentioning that you look a bit silly. But I think as of all the layers in the industry, well, let me take that back. One of the layers in the industry that's less obvious how AI applies to is kind of the res tech, the availability, that piece. It's not totally clear. It wasn't when Gen AI started how that would have immediately revolutionized res tech. I think, well, I'd just be interested to hear your opinion on that and where AI fits in, because some people say AI replaces SaaS. I don't necessarily believe that, but I'd just be interested to hear your opinion around that.
Yeah, no. I mean, maybe I'll start with the AI for the market perspective, because I think there's two narratives or 2 chapters, right? There's the AI for the market, and there's AI for the companies themselves. For me, when it comes to AI for the market, a year ago, we felt like the market needed a bit of a wake-up call, right? And obviously, I'll mention the AI dome we had at Arrival, but in talking to our operators at the time, it was so clear that they wanted to do more, and yet they didn't know where to start. And that was just over a year ago. And so we spent the better part of this past year trying to both release tools, but more importantly than the tools themselves, get them thinking about it, get them thinking about how this will evolve naturally, and get them testing and learning and iterating. I think we don't believe that the way that most of our operators should think about AI is to have just individual features that are really great, but it's more, how do I interweave AI throughout my offering, throughout my platform, throughout my business? And I will say I've spent probably this last Arrival half of my time talking about AI features, and half of my time talking about just the way that they could actually use AI as a business. And so, we're all still in our nascency of navigating this. What has been true is that there is a small, call it the upper 1% kid, that is really wanting to drive aggressive innovation in terms of upper funnel discovery into mid funnel research and then booking and then customer interactions. And I think it's that upper 1% who are pushing me, and then obviously Oscar, our co-founder, CTO, and our product team, to challenge us to say, well, if you're the delivery layer to the back end employees and the delivery layer to the people booking, right? But I have all these things that I want to roll in to create innovation, whether that's rescheduling or our pricing, AI-powered pricing, or a research module, or a question that I have that leads to a booking. We are getting stretched to make sure that whether it's via Peek deliberately or through technology partners, we can let them test and learn. And I think my personal theory is that it'll be that upper 1%, which then becomes the 5 or 10%, that will then create the majority of this innovation with us, and then that will cascade down as features to the market. And go ahead.
What are the top 3 things, Josiah, that you think that res techs need to be doing for the operators in order to, get them ready for agentic commerce, et cetera? What are you talked a little bit about rescheduling, reissuing vouchers, change, cancel, all that. What do you think are kind of the main functionalities that need to exist?
What I've observed, it's a great question. What I've observed the last 18 months, I think it's people tend to be starting with the platform and building out, at least from my lens, because obviously that's where we live. So I think things that have started more naturally are, AI-driven insights to the operators, AI-driven pricing models, right? AI-different interactions and touch points around how I should think about my products and offerings. And then, what's then grown from that is, when we released Copilot last year, AI-driven influencer tools for content creation, AI-driven blog posts, it was kind of going up the funnel. What I think has been interesting is at this last Arrival, I probably spent 5-6 hours talking to some of the most savvy operators out there, some on Peek, some not on Peek, about to do a layer above. And you're seeing people say, well, I want to have this experience journey where I get discovered on a ChatGPT or a Claude or wherever it is, right? And then it points to the content that I have optimized to be found, right? Then once they actually get in that journey and they've thought about the booking, then it's all the remarketing, the tools to re-engage. And then when they do finally book, right, I have then all these AI-driven touch points, pre-booking, during booking, post-booking. And every one of those things, I'm either giving them content, or I'm soliciting feedback, I'm cross-selling to them, a really holistic journey that is supported at every step of the way. And I think for us as a platform, we can do a good chunk of that today. A lot of it we can't. And so I walked away from Arrival with a bunch of homework, frankly, where I had to go out there and say, okay, let me facilitate the next 10 conversations with what we do, what they want, and then third parties that can do it in between. And so I don't actually know, but I was blown away by how much further that upper 1 or 5% had gone in the last 12 months. And now I'm getting pulled into this again. I mentioned, with the really innovative CIO I'm talking to right now, and half of these folks aren't even on Peek today, but they're saying, I'm making a bet. Maybe that's the question that you didn't ask, but I'll answer is, people are saying, I need to make a bet for my next 5 years of which platform I work with to facilitate the innovation I want to have, right? And I need to decide on that now. And it's interesting because I'm finding myself pitching less of this feature, and more pitching the strategy, the direction of the platform. And that's where the M&A got really interesting. Because
I was just going to ask you that, Josiah, like, what of the M&A, right? What did you get out of that gets you closer to where you want to be when it comes to AI?
No, well, it actually goes hand in hand because I'll use memberships, for example, and I'm not going to commit to a timetable, but I know for certain at some points we have to have a more robust memberships module for, I'll use one segment, one of our many segments, boat clubs. We do hundreds of boat rentals, and a lot of them also have boat clubs. And you know what? They want to have a thoughtful way to have that, that memberships module grant them valuable entitlements and help them do the booking and make sure the entitlements are justified with the booking and the discount codes and all the things that come with that. And so for us, we said, well, I know that I have to think about how to have, the AI interactions make sense. But frankly, if I don't have a great memberships module at my core, it'll never be that much better than the market. And so how do I get to that module as fast as humanly possible? And, that's where the M&A came in. And we go, well, you know what? I can accelerate my learning curve. And therefore, it's the classic, build, partner, buy, right? I think we decided that there's going to be a number of things we're already partnering with. I think this is our first foray into buy. And if we can do that and then therefore free up, brain power and dev resources to still have more left over for AI, it becomes a win for all of us, I think. Now, the devil's in the details, and I'm sure my product team will listen to this and say, hey, it's much harder than that. But certainly having off-the-shelf really great features from the platforms already today, I think has really accelerated our understanding and knowledge about how to do those and let those just work versus what we need to build in-house.
I've got 2 quick points. One, Bruce, are you also upset that Josiah has said great question to all of Laurie's questions, but not once to one of our questions?
It's a good question, Christian.
That doesn't upset me because he said arrival so many times that I'm all good with that. And
So
now, we've got 2 new clients coming on board. Plus, I'm going to see you in Valencia because you're now in Europe, right?
This is true. I think, yeah, we've probably makes sense.
So I'm all good.
That was
about you.
Here.
That was point 1 of 2, if I may. I'm the only upset one right now, so you got some making up to do.
Well,
No, so
typical. Yeah.
interesting. I remember talking to Oscar when you guys raised the 80 million in 21, and I was thinking, come on, Oscar, you're not going to go outside the US, and you're not broadening this, and it didn't sound big enough. And everything you've just said, using the AI to fix real problems is good, right? That's operators and attractions have real problems, and you're using the AI to solve operational problems. But is that big enough? Is it big enough now at your stage, raising all this money? Is the TAM still big enough just to use that to build tools to acquire more of the same types of customers? Or I asked you about the network effects. You didn't really say that was a big thing, but is that big enough just to go and get the next 500 big attractions? I mean, that's a lot, but is that big enough?
I think it's quite big because the geographic element to me is really exciting. So obviously you have to make sure that you can continue to win in the verticals you go after, which obviously I think we as Peek have done, and now we're adding 2 brands that have done that themselves. But I'll say especially for Connect&Go, it's clear to me in talking to them and their teams that they are global first business in terms of how they think about product, how they think about expansion. We had a conversation on Friday talking about the unique needs of Quebec versus France versus the Netherlands, and everything in the way they approach it has been global in nature. And so when we then think about what that can do to accelerate the country by country growth, and this is a massive market. And for the better part of 5 to 10 years, I feel like people will say, Pete, why aren't you operating faster here? Why aren't you operating there? Why aren't you here yet? Come. And I think we said, well, hold off. Let's make sure that we can be best in class when we arrive. And I think this now can accelerate that. And so I think the answer is yes. I mean, we're not done. I'm sure there will be more on the horizon. But I think that, if I imagine what we have today, coupled with the existing footprint of Acme and Connect&Go, and then the ability to accelerate further, international expansion off of that DNA and bringing all 3 brands to that. I mean, that's I think quite a bit to keep us busy for quite a while.
You're not done acquiring, is that what you meant?
No, I mean we'll keep looking. I think this is I do think that this market is ripe for consolidation. We've said it for a long time now. I simply don't see how in the next 5 years, the long tail of booking platforms on all 3 now brands as TAM can sustain unless they want to just be kind of a lifestyle business with clients that are okay with them because they know them personally. I do think that there will be a segment of the market that retains 30, 40, 50 clients because they've known the founder and that's how they operate. But how do you go negotiate with OpenAI to be included in the future iteration of perhaps the App Store if you are a platform that has less than 100 clients and are a lifestyle?
I think you just told us why you did it.
I mean, I'm not committing to anything, but certainly scale I think will matter. more than ever before.
Yeah.
Well,
And
scale,
so,
but geo, huge. I think the biggest piece is vertical. I mean, you bought your way into the enterprise piece of the business, which frankly, there's a lot less companies that do a good job there than there are in the space you were in before the acquisitions, right? I mean, there's
Yeah.
hundreds of companies in the SME space,
Yeah.
and most of them tech is good.
Yeah.
There's probably dozens in the enterprise space, not hundreds. So I think that makes a ton of sense to
Yeah.
do it that way.
Do you have a new TAM? What's the TAM now in tours and activities? 270.
I think we said, I think we think it's bigger than, I mean, obviously I have a separate team that does this. I think we think it's even bigger than what's out there by Arrival or others, right? But you know, it's directly in that 200 to 300 billion rate.
Yeah, you guys quoted 300 billion.
Yeah.
I don't know where the stat came from. We're actually first quarter going to release a new market size. We haven't released anything since 2019. We're partnering up with Focusrite on a new study, and we're coming out with something Q1. So
Good. Yeah, I'm excited
stay
about
tuned
that.
for what that number
And
is.
and then for the record, I think the Arrival methodology I think is very sound. I think that the gray area tends to be, there's some interesting kind of burgeoning segments like FCC. Like, how do you define FCC with how it's evolving? It's growing so fast and changing so much. You know, immersive experiences are changing so fast. New pop-ups overnight. You know, holiday light shows. I mean, there's so many segments that I think
There are so many segments. Just to clarify, your first one that you said was FEC, right?
Yeah, like family
entertainment centers. Yeah, right. And do they count or not?
Yeah.
That's a tough one. So same thing as what's called a live entertainment or live events.
Yeah.
And I've said to these guys, what's a dead event? I don't understand why it's live events. But events, right?
Hopefully he doesn't say Arrival, Bruce.
What's that?
Nothing. Nothing.
Move on.
The other quote that, or if I'm doing a data check, fact check on your PR is 40% of operators, only 40% have online booking right now. I mean, I remember we said that like 10 years ago. So is that an actual number that where'd that come from?
I think you still,
you're looking globally. I mean, maybe
I think you have to look.
US, it's like way higher than that.
No, I think it's definitely globally looking, and I think also when you go into the to the long tail of the market. I mean, at the high end of the market, to your point, Bruce, a lot of folks already have a platform or an in-house system they're using, and that's typically where I personally spend a lot of my time. But I am blown away by how often we still do see internationally or for the small side of our TAM, folks not doing it. And so that's where I think, Lori's question about international growth is really exciting, because if we can go in and bring to bear a platform that can solve their needs in their language, with their localization requirements and cultural elements, it's powerful. We do think that at the high end, it's becoming, more of a replacement process because they've had something in place. And the question is, what is that? Is it one of the other players we directly compete with, or is it perhaps, legacy tech that they built themselves?
Right.
And go from there.
Yeah, you're best when you hear proprietary software. Like, okay, good.
That is one of my favorite segments to go after for sure.
Right.
One last thing, we because we're running short of time, we were meant to talk about Klook. What's an interesting thing you could say about the Klook IPO, which is in a couple of weeks, or coming out in a couple of weeks, maybe 3 weeks? What's something interesting you could say that's not just blah blah blah? Yeah, good for the industry, whatever.
No, I mean, I think in looking at what they filed, and again, it could be, who knows how much is legit versus not. But I think that the hyper frequent use of AI in terms of internal, like I said earlier, we are spending just as much time on our product as we are internally thinking about how we reinvent ourselves in the AI world. And I love that the mantra of, hey, before you make the next hire, can you do it with an AI tool? We've had our CMO has also become our head of AI himself for all internal purposes and external purposes, and it's challenging all of us to think through the way that we deploy this in terms of our workflows, our touch points. And so, if Klook is doing what they said they're doing in terms of this filing and that efficient in terms of AI, I think it's going to be one of many businesses you'll see coming out talking about that. And I will say though, it's a cultural shift that's required as a company. And I think I underappreciated it 18 months ago. Just how difficult it can be to really force your business to wrap your arms around it and then rethink every decision you make with it. And we're on that journey. I don't think we're there yet, but we're definitely making progress. And I think it was I guess in one way it's validating to see how much Klook had done the same thing in terms of their success. And I'm an optimist. I do believe that that AI will help us unlock more and hopefully make this world better. There always will be difficulty along the way that we have to navigate through. But that was interesting for sure to see how they've done it. And I think as far as and I'm not an expert on APAC, but it does seem like APAC has had less of an incumbent dynamic than we've had, in North America or Europe. And so it seems like they perhaps were using that also to kind of get deeper and more vertically integrated than perhaps even I imagined. So that was interesting to see. And certainly the network effects are powerful there.
Excellent. And we're going to do a separate show with Rod Cuthbert and maybe somebody else on Klook, which will be an interesting discussion.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think we need to wrap this up. It was a good long talk. Thank you, Josiah. Really appreciate
this is fun.
Getting the inside scoop on one of the biggest transactions in our industry in a long, long time. So congratulations. It sounds exciting.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well,
thank you. Yeah, we're all very excited. It's going to be a lot of work, more to come, but certainly the reactions from the market has been tremendously positive, and we're busy, but the good kind of busy.
Yeah, no, I think you're going to get a great response. So
yeah, congrats to you and the whole team. It's really exciting.
Are you going to do your final question?
If Josiah could speak quickly, he speaks quickly, but if he can give the answers quickly. three best countries you've been to. Actually, you might talk quicker than anybody I know, with like in a normal cadence. But 3 best countries you've been to, and 3 countries that you haven't been to that you'd like to go to.
Ooh, 3 of my favorite countries: Argentina, South Africa, and in Iceland. Probably 3 of my favorites. 3 that are on the list. I've wanted to go to. Well, I'll cheat. I've only been to Brazil once, but I'm desperate to go back. That's definitely on the list for sure. I wanted to go, kind of explore the Himalayas region. I've never been to that part, which would be exciting. And then I'll give a shout out to my founders. They joke about how they met over a bond for these like horseback riding in Mongolia as like the thing that they said was the coolest experience they've ever done. So I gotta do it too. I can't be missing out.
I think
second Mongolia in a row, isn't it?
Yeah, I was just going to say we just had one. Actually, we should start. We really should keep track of this stuff, right? What's how many countries people have been to, want to go to?
We should. Well, we have it all taped, so we can do that.
Here we go.
Mongolia is hot. Mongolia is
hot.
Yeah. Mongolia is hot for sure.
Yeah. Definitely.
Excellent.
Okay.
Well, thank you guys. It's been a great show.
See you all again soon.
Yeah. It was awesome. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, good luck with everything. Have fun integrating whatever that looks like over the next year or two. Hopefully, maybe we'll see you in Valencia.
Yeah.
Otherwise, thanks, Lori. Thanks, Christian, for a great show. Our next show should be with Rod Cuthbert talking about the Klook IPO, which is scheduled to happen the first week of December. Probably the biggest financial event in our industry. I don't know. There's not been a prior IPO, so the biggest event since Trip acquired Viator. So having Rod makes a lot of sense because he was the CEO of Viator at the time. Well, he wasn't actually the CEO at the time. He was the founder, but they had hired another CEO prior to the acquisition. So I'm sure we'll hear that story as well. So thanks everybody. If you've got to
have a good one.
The end of this recording, thank you very much. Doubtful, but we would appreciate that you did. So we'll see you next time.
Take care.